we at the Apollinaire Theater in Chelsea, Massachusetts are putting on a bilingual, immersive outdoor production of Romeo and Juliet. So it's going to be in Spanish and English, and it opens this weekend now, weather allowing, and it runs August 14th, August 21st, and August 28th. It's going to be completely free. We're going to have a lot of pre-show performances. We have a beer garden pop-up. We're really encouraging people to, order takeout from the local restaurants and, sit and enjoy the concert, wander through the park, check out everything that's going on. And then the show is going to start after about an hour and a half of pre-show, and it'll start at 7:45. And we have a little bit of everything. Have sword fighting. It travels through the park, so audiences are going to be traveling along with the show. So it's not just something that you pull up a chair for and you passively watch. We're really inviting you to come into this world and be a part of it with us.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like sort of a hands-on interactive immersion.
Yes, it definitely is. Yeah.
Okay, now I would like to get started with this, which is, in my opinion, quite a challenge here that you have put up, doing a Shakespeare play in English and Spanish. So let me ask you a few personal questions first. How bilingual are you?
I'm fully bilingual. My first language is Spanish. I'm Puerto Rican. I came to the States when I was 18 to go to college. And then I stuck around working in theater.
Well, I tell you what, that sounds great, because that is exactly what I needed for this project right now. So I'm bilingual in English and Spanish. So what would you say if we continue to do this interview in Spanglish? So bilingual in English and Spanish. Are you up for it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So what I'm going to do starting now is that I'm going to ask you the questions that I've prepared and repeat them to you in Spanish. And to keep this organized, I would let you give your comments and your answers in English first and then in Spanish. Is that okay for you?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so in that case, let me repeat my first question that I've just asked you. ¿De cuál manera eres bilingüe?
Pues yo soy totalmente bilingüe. Yo soy puertorriqueña, y estudié en una escuela bilingüe, así que aprendí inglés bastante temprano, pero no lo hablábamos en casa. Y terminé mudándome a los Estados Unidos para ir a la universidad cuando tenía 18 años y me quedé aquí trabajando profesionalmente en el teatro.
Okay, very good. I understand you perfectly well. So we go back to the maybe your own personal background. So in a nutshell, in English first, so I'm going to ask you this in English. Could you please repeat for the audience your personal name, your company's name, your main activities, and your current location in English first, please?
Yes. So I'm Carla Mirabal. I work at the Apollinaire Theater as the assistant to the artistic director, and I am an assistant director on the play of Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, y ahora vamos a repetir la misma información en español. Entonces, ¿podrías darnos tu nombre personal, el nombre de tu compañía, de tu grupo de teatro, tus actividades principales y tu ubicación actual, por favor?
Sí. Yo me llamo Carla Mirabal, soy la asistente del Artistic Director en el Apollinaire Theater Company y en la obra de Romeo y Julieta soy una asistente de dirección.
Perfecto. So before you have given me that nice special announcement that describes your theater play taking place in the park in Boston, Massachusetts. Now, could you please repeat that special announcement in Spanish? ¿Podrías repetir este anuncio especial en español ahora?
Sí. El Apollinaire Theater Company, basado en Chelsea, Massachusetts, que está justo al otro lado del río de Boston. Estamos haciendo una obra de Romeo y Julieta, la famosa de Shakespeare, de forma bilingüe, en español y en inglés. Y esto va a ser un evento total, va a ser al aire libre, completamente gratis. Tendremos un concierto como parte de nuestro pre-show con música en vivo. Van a haber muchos actos alrededor de todo el parque, muy bueno para familias. Y eso va a durar como 1 hora y media antes de que comience la obra como tal. Y pues familias pueden venir, sentarse, beber algo, pedir comida de los restaurantes locales, y disfrutar del concierto. Y la obra comienza a eso de las 7:45 de la tarde, de la noche. Y va a ser completamente inmersivo, o sea, te invitamos completamente a que te unas a este mundo con nosotros, este mundo que hemos creado. La audiencia va a ser parte de Verona como tal, no es algo, es una producción ambulante, así que no es nada, no es como el teatro típico donde uno se sienta y ve algo así pasivamente, es muy activo, tienes que, o sea, sigues los actores a través de la acción. Eso ocurre en varios lugares del parque, a veces ocurre dentro del teatro, a veces afuera, así que es un evento total.
Sí, es un evento total y además es un reto porque lo que pasa es que es bastante difícil producir, pienso yo, una obra de teatro clásica como la de Romeo Juliet en inglés y en español. Entonces, hablando inglés ahora, in English, I would like to share some of the challenges your company has probably put up with in the run-up to this performance, which is to deal with typical quotes from Romeo and Juliet in both languages. First of all, if you can see the messages in chat, I would like to send you a message and would like you to take a look at it, if you don't mind, and then give us a spontaneous reading performance in English and Spanish of the Shakespeare quote that I'm sending you now. First of all, can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so if you're ready, I let you fire away.
My bounty is as boundless as the sea. My love is deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite. Mi generosidad es tan ilimitada como el mar, mi amor tan profundo. Cuando más te doy, más tengo, pues ambos son infinitos.
Well, first of all, let me ask you a question in English and Spanish now, about the Spanish part in this case. Una pregunta en inglés y en español ahora sobre la parte española de esta cita. What do you make of this translation into Spanish? ¿Qué te parece esta traducción al español?
Me parece bien. O sea, nosotros lo que hicimos para la nuestra es que buscamos ¿verdad? Unos guiones que estén en lo que llamamos el public domain, ¿verdad? Que no tengan ningún tipo de copyright para poder utilizarlo y editarlo como necesitemos. La obra no es una obra bilingüe, pero no es totalmente bilingüe, que todo se repite en español y en inglés. Así que tenemos ciertos personajes que son bilingües, tenemos ciertos personajes que hablan español y ciertos personajes que hablan inglés. Y esa es la manera que lo estamos haciendo. Así que no es algo que primero se dice en inglés y luego se vuelve a decir en español. ¿Me explico?
Perfectamente. Y así voy a intentar un poco un resumen en inglés de lo que acabas de decir. So first of all, you're trying to take into account copyright issues, potential copyright issues, and then you're trying to make it understandable for a Spanish-speaking audience. So would that be, in a nutshell, the way you would put it in English?
Yeah, not so much copyright issues because Shakespeare, luckily it is in the public domain. So it is, which is why there are so many adaptations and so many theater companies do Shakespeare plays. It's because they're very affordable. You don't have to pay anybody to do a Shakespeare play. So, and you can feel free to cut it and, create your own version of it. So it allows for a lot of creative freedom, so yeah, when we were looking for Spanish translations, we didn't use just one. We used a lot of them that we cobbled together into one that we made our own and we liked best. And they were all pulled from things that were in the public domain as well.
Okay, and when it comes to the possibility of freedom in terms of interpretation and things like that, I actually have a few questions about that. Let's go back for a moment to the Spanish translation of the quote I gave you just before.
Yes.
Now, to me, that translation is modern Spanish, okay? So what would you say, both in English and Spanish, what would Shakespearean or Elizabethan English sound like in Spanish?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that we definitely had to chat about and think about a lot, and it played a huge role in choosing the translations. Because we didn't want it to feel too modern to the English feeling, too old. We didn't think that would work well together. So I think a lot of what helped us is, first of all, our translations were not very new, given they were in the public domain. They were from about a century ago. I think even a little bit more. So they were from like the early 20th century, maybe late 19th century. So they were already pretty old translations, which I think helped us. And the other thing we had to do was, find something that felt like it flowed the same way Shakespeare does, had that sense of poetry to it. That was a really big one to me. As well as something that, is performable, something that actors can take and they can actually act out. That's an issue with a lot of translations of plays, especially classic plays such as Shakespeare, where translators will translate them in order to be read, and then they are not actually meant to be performed. So that was another challenge. It was making sure that we found the right mix of all of that, and overall that it would actually be something that actors were capable of performing, and it would sound right. It wouldn't feel like it was, trying to push together two puzzle pieces that don't quite fit.
Ujú. Y ahora, ¿cómo podrías resumir tu respuesta en inglés al español?
Sí, que tuvimos que tomar muchas cosas en consideración en cuando estábamos escogiendo los guiones como tal, o sea, las traducciones al español, porque cuando algo se traduce, especialmente literatura así clásica, particularmente obras, se traducen como si fuesen novelas, no como si fuesen algo específicamente ¿verdad? Para teatro, algo que se pueda actuar. Así que definitivamente teníamos que buscar eso, algo que se sienta bien, que sea como que, ¿verdad? Que se enfoque en la acción, es lo que estoy tratando de decir. Algo que se enfoque en la acción para que los actores puedan actuar. Algo que fluya bien con el inglés como tal, así que el lenguaje que no sea muy moderno, igual que algo que sea así más poético, como tiene el lenguaje de Shakespeare.
Ujú, ujú. Muy interesante. Entonces, dime en este momento, ¿cuál es tu citación o tu expresión de Shakespeare favorita? What's your favorite Shakespeare quote or phrase?
Oh. Oh my gosh. Now I'm trying to think. It's not from Romeo and Juliet, actually. I love The Tempest is actually my favorite Shakespeare play, and I don't have this quote in Spanish. I've never read The Tempest in Spanish, but I really like, just "Oh Brave New World that has such people in it," which is a Miranda quote from The Tempest.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I have prepared something for you to improvise with. Let's start here. He preparado algo para ti para improvisar un poco. How would you at least sum up that quote in Spanish? ¿Cómo se podría resumir por lo menos esta citación en español?
Quizás, yo no soy traductora, pero quizás, ay, qué mundo tan maravilloso que tiene gente tan maravillosa, algo algo así.
Pues suena muy lindo en español. It sounds very nice in Spanish. For my next two questions, I've actually taken two other excerpts from the Romeo and Juliet play that are actually questions that I would like to repeat to you. He preparado algunas preguntas de la misma obra de Romeo y Juliet que son preguntas que voy a repetir para ti. My first question is this. What's Montague? ¿Qué es Montague?
Montague.
Montague. Okay, you've just corrected me. Okay, thank you very much. Acabas de corregirme. Muchas gracias.
Sí, Montague, or, in Spanish, Montesco. Montague is one of the main families in the rivalry of Romeo and Juliet, right? It's the Montagues versus the Capulets. Romeo is a Montague and Juliet is a Capulet, and so that is why they are the star-crossed lovers. These two families have been in a rivalry for decades, maybe a century now, for longer than anybody can remember. So they are two families that are very similar but are constantly butting heads. And so when Romeo and Juliet fall in love, it's a scandal. That's why they have to hide it, because their families hate each other. They can't be together. So that's what Montague is. It's Romeo's family.
¿Y en español, por favor?
Pues los Montescos y los Capuletos son las dos familias en Verona que tienen su rivalidad, ¿verdad? Y en eso se basa la obra como tal. Así que Romeo es un Montesco y Julieta es una Capuleta. Y tienen que esconder su amor cuando se enamoran, porque sus dos familias no se llevan bien, o sea, llevan ya años y años y décadas en esta rivalidad y nadie realmente sabe por qué. Simplemente una de esas cosas que es, así es como son las cosas, así que de esta manera lo vamos a hacer. Así que por eso tienen que esconder su amor y todo una vez se enamoran, porque como sus familias no se llevan bien, pues todo tiene que ser un secreto.
Actually, I would like to give you the real answer to that question, what is Montague? And I let you improvise. So this is my next message, and it's only in English. So here it is. Could you please read the next message or perform it?
Oh, this is from Juliet's. Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo Monologue. Yeah, what's Montague? It is nor hand nor foot, nor arm nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name. So here Juliet's lamenting the fact that Romeo is a Montague, and that's the only thing that is keeping them apart. It's something as trivial as a name, right?
Y ahora, ¿cómo se podrían resumir tus comentarios y esta citación?
Sí, pues aquí hay una cita que es del famoso monólogo de Julieta, el de Romeo, Romeo, en la ventana, ¿verdad? En el balcón. Y simplemente ella está lamentando que no puede estar con Romeo simplemente por su nombre. Algo que, ¿verdad? ¿Cuánta importancia tiene un nombre? Bueno, en este mundo, ¿verdad? Y en tiempos antiguos parece que era muchísimo. Y está diciendo, pero eso no dice nada de cómo él es como persona. Eso es simplemente un nombre. ¿Qué importa un nombre? Sí, eso es lo que dice la cita.
So the second question coming straight from Romeo and Juliet that I would like to repeat to you. La segunda pregunta que viene directamente de Romeo y Juliet que te voy a repetir. What is there in a name? ¿Qué hay en un nombre?
What's in a name? A name, a rose by any other name should smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Eso también that is also part of Juliet's Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo monologue.
Y ahora en español, ¿cómo dirías esto?
Well, that was the actual quote from play, so I don't actually
sorry.
know if it's
Could
in.
you please repeat it?
Yeah, it goes. I believe she goes. This is from memory. I believe she goes. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title.
Uh-huh. Well, I give you a little help here. That's my next message.
Yeah. Así que esto también es una cita de el monólogo famoso de Julieta, donde más o menos está lidiando con lo mismo, de que ¿qué es un nombre? Que cualquier cosa, o sea, una rosa sin el nombre todavía, ¿verdad? Todavía es una rosa. Y ella está tratando de, ¿verdad?, reconciliar esto de que su familia tiene una rivalidad con los Montescos y no puede estar con Romeo, pero, o sea, ya se enamoró de él y qué importa un nombre, cuánta importancia tienen los nombres, ¿verdad?
See. I would like to mention to you sort of modern adaptations or let's say modern artwork that I would tend to associate with the drama of Romeo and Juliet. Hay algunas obras contemporáneas que voy a asociar con el drama de Romeo y Juliet. For example, I always tend to associate Romeo and Juliet with a Bruce Springsteen song. Tengo la tendencia de asociar Romeo y Juliet con una canción de Bruce Springsteen. El título es State Trooper. State Trooper is the title. The main stanza goes like this: Mr. State Trooper, please don't stop me, please don't stop me. And the image is that he is driving without a license to see his lover. Okay, and so he ignores everything. And the romantic story is pretty much like Romeo and Juliet. It's against all odds. It's against the family. It's a scandal, just like what we've been talking about. So taking this quote, Mr. State Trooper, please don't stop me, as an example, I would like to challenge you with a question like that. What can stop you? ¿Qué te puede parar a ti?
In terms of what can stop me from what, I guess is my question.
Yeah, well, for example, if I go back to the image of State Trooper, so he has to overcome lots of odds and obstacles, including the law. And in a way, we could say or argue that Romeo and Juliet are also kind of outlaws. Okay, so how far would you go with your...
definitely becomes, he is in fact banished from Verona, so he is an outlaw.
Yeah, so he could be like the main character in Bruce Springsteen's State Trooper, and the Verona authorities would be the State Trooper, right?
Mm.
Yeah, so let me repeat the question again. What can stop you?
You know, from doing theater, I don't really, let me not jinx it, but I don't really think much. You know, it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I continue doing it throughout even the pandemic in virtual form. So I think with something that's so resilient, right? Romeo and Juliet was written in how many centuries ago, right? It was written so long ago that if I know anything, I know that theater will persist, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's actually, that's a memorable quote. Now I quote you. Theater will persist no matter what. And you're talking about Shakespeare and centuries ago. If I go back to antiquity in Greece, where we can go back thousands of years ago, right?
Yeah. And it's not just, you know, just to emphasize, it's not just Greece. It's not just England. There was theater happening everywhere, all over the world. We put a lot of emphasis on, you know, what we call the Western canon, your Shakespeare's, all these like very famous plays. But theater was happening all over the world. Pretty much every culture had their own form of theater. So yeah, I think it's the desire to be a storyteller. It's the desire to pass down information. It's the desire to, you know,
Yeah, I get you.
Keep history alive, like keep memories alive, or just to be entertained and to entertain. Yeah, and I don't think it's ever going away.
Yeah, and you're talking about sort of the timeless aspects of theater, and I would sum it up with a phrase in English that I would like to give you the challenge of sort of summing up in Spanish. So what you're saying about theater in sort of a timeless way, we could say is that the sky is the limit, right? ¿Qué te parece?
Sí, bueno, el cielo es el límite, ¿no?
Sí. El cielo es el límite. Esto podría ser el resumen de tu pregunta anterior a la citación de Bruce Springsteen, ¿no?
Sí.
Now, Romeo and Juliet has been described as a tragedy, as drama, because it doesn't have a good ending and stuff like that. Now, you're talking about entertaining people. And people often tend to associate, and here I also would like to mention the context of the pandemic, because people might tend to be entertained with comedy, and Romeo and Juliet might not be the most adequate play in that context. So, how do you intend to make people laugh or smile? ¿Cómo intentas de hacer las personas reír o sonreír?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common misconception that because something is a tragedy, it is always sad. And there's never moments of lightness. I would challenge that and say, actually, the things that make it tragic is that you saw people in their moments of lightness. You saw them be happy, and then you saw them crash all the way down to their worst moment. So there is actually a lot of that lightness, and there's a lot of parts of Romeo and Juliet that are funny, and there are characters that are very funny. And then I think, right, if we're going back to the Greeks and Aristotle and whatnot, that brings in that concept of, right, catharsis, of like a purging of emotion, of audience members seeing this journey and then learning something from it, as well as they experience those emotions themselves, and then that offers them catharsis, or a way to purge their own emotions, right? So if we go way back to that concept, I think Romeo and Juliet definitely falls into that. But yeah, it has, I would say, it has some very funny moments. There are times where I, in rehearsal, would just be like, wow, and this is the tragedy?
Yeah, and actually that makes good entertainment, right? Entonces, en español, ¿cómo dirías todo esto en español?
Sí, que eso es una... ¿Verdad? Mucha gente piensa que, bueno, porque es una tragedia, pues va a ser triste todo el tiempo. O sea, no tiene nada de felicidad, no te va a hacer reír. Y eso, para Romeo y Julieta, por lo menos, eso no es cierto. O sea, yo pienso que la tragedia está en el que los vimos enamorarse, o sea, ¿verdad? Tan jóvenes, los vimos enamorarse, y pensar que sí, ok, si hacemos esto, vamos a poder estar juntos. O sea, yo me escapo y te encuentro en Mantua, que Julieta está a punto de dejar a su familia porque ama a Romeo tanto, pero entonces el plan no funciona, y entonces la tragedia está en el que los vimos tan felices, y en esos momentos así muy, ¿verdad? Momentos preciosos. Y entonces después de esos momentos ellos cayeron y terminaron, claro, ¿verdad? Como el final, el famoso Romeo y Julieta, que terminaron muriendo de una manera muy trágica. Pero yo creo que la tragedia funciona simplemente porque tenemos esos momentos de felicidad. Entonces la audiencia puede tener su catarsis a través de eso.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned, or we've talked about Greece a little bit just now, Aristotle and so forth. Now, in Greek, for example, there is a word in ancient Greek, for community, which is polis, P-O-L-I-S. Polis means community, means city, the village, or whatever. And obviously from that we have derived politics. So if we go back to the general Greek sense, if we think of Romeo and Juliet as being a love story against the authority, so to speak, how would you describe that? What's the state of your political consciousness? ¿Cómo describirías el estado de tu conciencia política?
I mean, I think Romeo and Juliet are going against the authorities in the sense that they're going against their authorities, right? I mean, in the play themselves, like they're just teenagers. So they are going against like the authority they know, which is their parents, right? It is a rebellion, and I mean, it basically at the end, it seems almost inevitable that it seems like something this tragic had to happen in order for everybody to wake up and realize this rivalry wasn't worth it. But yeah, I mean, I think in that sense, they definitely are going against the grain. They're rebelling against what they know, and in order to create something that they can happily live in, like in order to create their own lives.
Mm-hmm. But not really live happily thereafter, right?
Yeah, I mean, depends on who you ask, but yes, definitely no, very tragic end.
Ok, ¿y en español, por favor?
Bueno, Romeo y Julieta, como tal, eran, o sea, en la obra, como está escrita, eran adolescentes, o no era, ¿verdad? Que es parte de la tragedia, que eran tan jóvenes. Entonces, ellos sí están haciendo, o sea, están yendo contra la corriente, están yendo contra sus padres. Eso es un acto político, porque esa es la autoridad de ellos como adolescentes, son sus padres. Entonces, ellos están rechazando lo que dicen sus padres para poder crear una vida ellos mismos, y ser felices ellos mismos.